Hey guys, Scott Elbrick with Southern Rock Real Estate. Good to see you again. Last week I talked about the lakes that surround and are found in Austin, Texas. And this week, as promised, I'm going to give you 10 tips on selling your waterfront property. So if you have a waterfront property right now and you're thinking about selling it, you might want to pay attention to this. So waterfront properties are great, but the misconception that most waterfront property owners have is that if I list my waterfront property, it's going to sell no matter what. That's not actually always the case. So let's get started with my 10 tips on selling your waterfront property. Tip number 1, understand who you're selling to. So when you're selling a waterfront property, it's a lot different than selling a typical non-waterfront property. Typically, the people that are looking for those waterfront properties already have an idea of what they're looking for, and it's usually in the water itself, what body of water that you live on, that they're looking for. So you might have people that want to live on Lake Travis, Lake Austin, if we are talking about Austin, Texas, or maybe you have a waterfront property on the beach somewhere, and that's what they're looking for. Their focus is the body of water that you're living on. So you want to make that your focus as well when you're selling and marketing your property. So whether your waterfront property has a spectacular view, access to the beach, or just has something where you can load your boat in and just go out on the water right away, you need to highlight the heck out of it because that's what those buyers are looking for. So tip number 2. Now these tips, I'm going to put 3 into 1, and mainly because these 3 tips I feel are just like when you're selling a traditional property, and that is to price it correctly, market it with professional photography and video, and know everything you can about the property. Now that's pretty self-explanatory if you're trying to sell your home, whether it is on a waterfront lot or not. Of course you want to price it correctly. If you don't price it right, then people may not come and look at it. And then it's always a good idea to get a professional photographer to do photos and videos rather than just mom and dad or your local realtor to do it. And though, just mainly because those photos don't always come out to be the best. But when you do use professional photography, they know how to make your property shine and the best parts about your property really shine. And then of course, you need to know everything about your home, but especially when it's a waterfront property. There's going to be a lot more questions that come up when it's a waterfront property. So the more you know, the better. And we'll talk about some of those questions coming up here in a minute. Okay, tip number 3. Now this is a big one. You want to maximize and stage your waterfront. Meaning, if you have a bunch of trees or shrubs that are kind of blocking the view of your access or pathway to the waterfront, you're going to want to get those trimmed. You want access and visibility to the waterfront, which is the most important part of your waterfront property, to be visible to everyone that comes and sees it. If it's hard to find or hard to see from the actual building, the actual property itself, it's not going to be quite as desirable as some of those properties that actually have those great views of their waterfront. So that brings us to the next tip, tip number 4. Make sure you can get to your dock. Make sure the access and the pathway is clear. Make sure it's an easy path to follow and that it's easy to get down to. If it's difficult to get down to, or if it's not exactly a waterfront property and it's kind of off to the side, any discrepancy like that, the buyer is not going to like very much. Another great tip about the dock, tip number 5, make sure the dock is in complete working order. If you have a boat lift on it, make sure that the boat lift works. If the dock needs a little maintenance, maybe some light bulbs replaced or something like that, do it. You don't want buyers showing up asking, hey, does that boat lift work? And then when you try it, you're like, sure. And you hear that, that's a bad sound. You don't want that in front of your buyers. So test them out. Make sure your boat lifts work. Make sure anything that's on the dock works, such as the lights or anything else. Okay, tip number 6, clean up the shoreline around your waterfront. Regardless if your waterfront is on the ocean and there's a beach side, or if it's on the lake and there's just kind of a lakeside to it, make sure it's clean. If there's trash laying around, that's not appealing to anyone, and especially not appealing to the buyer. So make sure that you pick up any trash, maybe do a little yard work, whatever it is along the shoreline that makes that shoreline shine, you'll want to do, because that's why the buyer's there, is to see that shoreline in pristine condition. All right, and also tip number 7 kind of goes along with number 6. It's about the shoreline again, but that is to focus on the curb appeal. Focus on the curb appeal of the shoreline in front of it and behind it. If there's anything that's floating around in the water that you can get access to, take it out. Anything that you see that doesn't look like a picturesque scene of a shoreline, whether it be a lake, river, ocean, I don't care. It needs to be clean. And that needs to be the focus of your staging and your marketing. Again, people who are looking at your property are doing it with a specific notion in mind. They want that waterfront, and they already have a picture in their head of what they think it looks like. So if they get there and it doesn't look like that, they're walking. All right, number 8. And now we're talking about more inside the property. Make sure your windows are clean. Yes, your windows. I know it sounds like a simple thing, but it's also an important thing. Especially when you're on a waterfront property, you would hope that you have some nice views looking out of the windows from the property to your shoreline. So how's the buyer going to see that with dirty windows? Make sure that you have the windows clean. If you can't do it, hire a professional. Trust me, it'll be worth it. All right, number 9. So now this is a big question that comes up whenever someone is buying a waterfront property that you need to know the answer to. And that is, does this property require flood insurance? When buyers are out looking at waterfront properties, they do not like surprises. So if you don't know the answer to this, or you give them the wrong answer, they aren't going to like that, and they're going to lose their trust in you. If you don't know the answer to that, it's best to tell them the truth, let them know you'll find out the answer, and get back to them as soon as possible. Make sure you get it right, because they want to make sure that all the questions they have and all the answers they're getting are getting truthful answers. And trust me, buyers, again, just do not like surprises in the buying process. So make sure you have that covered. And number 10 is a big one. Make sure you know a professional realtor who specializes in waterfront properties. Realtors who don't have that experience with waterfront properties don't know all the things that I just covered, how important it is to stage the waterfront, the dock, make sure the dock is in working order, and the questions that will come from waterfront property buyers, especially the one about flood insurance. So make sure you hire a realtor who has experience in waterfront properties. They'll know how to price it better, they'll know how to market it better, especially the ones that know about the actual lakes and waters themselves. They will be the ones that you want to reach out to and utilize when you're selling your property if you want to get the most eyes on your property and you want to sell it for the highest price. So I hope you've enjoyed these 10 tips that I've given you for selling your waterfront property. Of course, there are a multitude of questions that could come up. They might have questions such as, what's the bottom floor of the water like? Is it sandy? Is it muddy? Is it rocky? What's the water temperature usually like? Is it cold? When does it get warm? What parts of the water are the best to go swimming on? The questions could be endless. So it's best for you to find someone that knows the most about the body of water that you live on, because that's what the buyer's looking for and that's what they want. So I hope this video has been helpful for anyone that's got a waterfront property and may be thinking about selling one in the future. If you have one in Austin, Texas, and you'd like some more advice on the best way to market it and how to sell those waterfront properties, please give me a call. I've lived in Austin, Texas my entire life, and I pretty much grew up on Lake Travis and Lake Austin, so I know a lot about them and I love talking about them. Again, I'm Scott Elbert with Southern Rock Real Estate. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.